7:42 p.m. October 31, 2000, Taipei, Taiwan. Rain hammering the cockpit windscreen, winds gusting to 50 knots, visibility barely a quarter mile. Singapore Airlines flight Day 06 is accelerating down the runway, 80 knots, 100 knots, 120 knots. The captain pulls back on the yoke and for just a split second, the Boeing 747 feels light, like it's about to fly. But something's wrong, terribly wrong. Construction equipment, concrete barriers, landing lights flashing past the windows where there should only be darkness. The crew has 3 seconds to realize they're not on a runway at all. They're on a closed taxiway, and they're about to hit something that's going to rip this jumbo jet apart. How does a crew with thousands of hours of experience take off from the wrong runway in one of Asia's busiest airports? What chain of errors led to this catastrophe? Who's going to survive what happens in the next 10 seconds? And why did it take a tragedy like this to expose dangerous gaps in airport safety worldwide? This is another story about warning signs ignored for years, until it was way too late. I'm Captain Peter Mercer. I've been flying for over 25 years, and what you're about to hear is this story from a pilot's point of view. Let me tell you, my friend, this one's going to stay with you. Welcome aboard. October 31st, 2000. Chiang Kai-shek International Airport, now known as Taoyuan International Airport, is Taiwan's main gateway to the world. This place handles over 20 million passengers a year, serving as a critical hub for Asian aviation. But on this Halloween night, the airport is getting absolutely pounded by Typhoon Zhangsain, one of the most severe storms to hit the region in years. Sustained winds are hitting 35 knots with gusts up to 50. Rain is coming down in sheets. Visibility, less than 400 meters in some areas. This is about as nasty as conditions get without shutting down operations entirely. Singapore Airlines Flight 006 is a scheduled passenger service from Taipei to Los Angeles with a planned stopover in Singapore. The aircraft? A Boeing 747-400, registration 9V-SPK, one of the most advanced and reliable wide-body jets in the sky. This particular 747 is less than 7 years old, delivered to Singapore Airlines in January 1995. It's got 159,262 flight hours on the airframe and 4,066 cycles, takeoffs and landings. Well-maintained, excellent service record. On board tonight, 179 souls. That breaks down to 159 passengers, citizens from 16 different countries including Taiwan, the United States, India, Singapore, and 20 crew members, families heading home, business travelers, people with plans, loved ones waiting for them. Now let me break down the flight crew for you because experience matters here, my friend. In the left seat, we've got Captain Chow Foong Yi, 41 years old. Captain Chow has been with Singapore Airlines since 1979. That's 21 years with the company. Total flight hours, over 17,000. Hours on the 747, more than 7,700. His last proficiency check was in July 2000, and he was rated above average across the board. This is not some rookie pilot, this is a seasoned professional. In the right seat, First Officer Latif Cyrano, 43 years old. He joined Singapore Airlines in 1988, giving him 12 years with the airline. Total hours, 11,000 plus. Hours on the 747, around 4,600. His last evaluation in August showed he met or exceeded all standards. And here's the thing, these two had flown together multiple times before. They knew each other's procedures, they worked well as a team. In the cockpit jump seat tonight, there's also a third officer and a relief captain, both along for positioning. They're dead-heading to their next assignment. So you've got 4 qualified pilots in that cockpit, 4 sets of eyes, thousands of combined hours of experience. You'll want to remember this part because what happens next shouldn't happen with this much expertise on the flight deck. The weather delay has already pushed their departure back by hours. The typhoon is right on top of the airport. Passengers are anxious. The crew wants to get airborne and out of this mess. ATC is managing departures carefully, trying to keep traffic moving despite the conditions. Here's something else you need to know about Chiang Kai-shek Airport: runway configuration. The airport has 2 parallel runways, 05 left and 05 right. But there's also taxiway 05R, which runs parallel to runway 05R. And on this night, runway 05R is closed for construction. There are concrete barriers, excavation equipment, and heavy machinery sitting right on that pavement. The runway's marked with big red X symbols, the universal sign for do not use this runway. But in the darkness, in the rain, with visibility at a quarter mile, those markers aren't as obvious as you'd think. 7:42 p.m. Singapore 006 receives taxi clearance from ground control. Singapore 006, taxi to runway 05 left via taxiway November Charlie, the captain acknowledges. The 747 begins its slow roll toward the departure end. Outside, it's chaos, wind buffeting the aircraft, rain streaking across every window, lightning flashing in the distance. Inside the cockpit, it's all business. Checklists, briefings. The crew is professional, methodical. 7:50 p.m. They reach the holding point. The captain contacts Tower. Tower, Singapore 006, ready for departure. Tower responds, Singapore 006, runway 05 left, wind 050 at 28 knots, gusting to 41, cleared for takeoff. The captain reads back the clearance. Everything sounds right. They've been cleared for runway 05L, the active runway, the one that's open and safe. But here's where things start to go wrong, my friend. Pay attention to this. The 747 is sitting at the intersection of taxiway NP and runway 05R, the closed runway. To get to runway 05L, they need to cross 05R and continue straight. But in the darkness and rain, the crew loses situational awareness. They think they're already lined up on 05L. 7:54 p.m. The captain advances the throttles. All four engines spool up. That distinctive roar of the Pratt & Whitney turbofans. The 747 starts rolling. Nobody in the cockpit realizes they're on the wrong runway. Not the captain, not the first officer, not the relief crew in the jump seats. 4 experienced pilots, and none of them catch it. 5 p.m. The jet accelerates. 60 knots, 80 knots, 100 knots. Everything feels normal. The aircraft is heavy, full fuel load for the long flight to Los Angeles, but it's accelerating smoothly. Then, at around 110 knots, the first officer sees something in the darkness ahead. Lights, flashing yellow lights, construction equipment. He doesn't have time to process what he's seeing before. Wham! The 747's landing gear slams into a concrete barrier. The nose gear collapses instantly. The jet pitches forward. The number 1 engine, the inboard engine on the left wing, strikes another barrier and disintegrates. Fuel sprays everywhere. Then the number 3 engine on the right wing hits excavation equipment. The right wing shears off. Listen up. This is all happening in about 3 seconds. From the moment the crew sees the obstacles to the catastrophic breakup of the aircraft, it's less time than it takes to read this sentence. The fuselage breaks apart. Fuel ignites. A massive fireball erupts. Orange and red flames shooting 50 feet into the air, visible for miles despite the rain. The forward section of the aircraft slides to a stop. The aft section is engulfed in fire. Inside, passengers are thrown against seat belts. The cabin goes dark. Then the smell. Jet fuel, smoke, burning plastic. People are screaming. The emergency slides don't deploy properly because the fuselage is broken. Some passengers crawl over wreckage to escape. Others are trapped. But here's the thing. Some of these pilots and passengers fight like hell to survive. In the forward section, crew members are helping passengers through emergency exits, even as flames close in from behind. People are jumping from the wings, landing in puddles of burning fuel. First responders see passengers on fire, rolling in the mud to extinguish the flames. It's absolute horror. Captain Chow and First Officer Latif both survive the initial impact. They're injured but conscious. They try to help coordinate evacuation even as the cockpit fills with smoke. The relief captain manages to escape through a cockpit window. The third officer, tragically, doesn't make it. Rescue crews arrive within minutes, but the fire is so intense they can't reach the aft section for nearly 20 minutes. By that time, anyone still trapped back there doesn't stand a chance. Here's what happened in the immediate aftermath. The tower controllers see the fireball and immediately activate emergency response. Taipei's airport fire crews are on scene fast. Let me give them credit, they're professionals. But the combination of fuel, fire, wind, and rain makes it nearly impossible to fight effectively. 82 people die that night. 82 souls. That includes passengers from multiple countries, families, business people, students. The other 97 survive, but many with severe burns and injuries that'll stay with them forever. The cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder are recovered within hours. Both are in good condition. Investigators arrive from Singapore, the United States, Boeing sends a team, and Taiwan's Aviation Safety Council leads the probe. And you know what they find? A cascade of failures that never should have happened. First, and this is the big one, the crew took off from a closed runway. Runway's 05R was marked with red X symbols, but in the poor visibility and darkness, those markings weren't sufficient. The crew lost situational awareness during taxi and didn't realize they'd turned onto the wrong surface. 4 pilots in that cockpit, and none of them caught the error. How? Fatigue from the delay, pressure to depart, task saturation. They were focused on weather, checklists, passenger comfort. Nobody was doing the basic job of confirming their position. Second, communication breakdown between the crew and ATC. Tower cleared them for runway 05L, but never confirmed which runway the aircraft was physically on. ATC couldn't see the 747 clearly on their radar in the storm. There was no ground radar system at Taipei Airport that could have shown controllers the exact position of every aircraft. This is 2000, my friend. Technology existed, but it wasn't installed here. Third, airport markings. Look, I get it. Red X on a runway means closed. But at night in a typhoon with visibility under 400 meters, those markings weren't enough. There were no barricades at the entrance to the closed runway. No lighted signs saying runway closed. The crew could taxi right onto it without any physical barrier stopping them. Fourth, here's what really gets me. Taipei Airport had a history of confusion about runway and taxiway layouts. This wasn't the first time a crew got disoriented during taxi. There'd been multiple reports of near misses, wrong turns, crews accidentally entering closed runways. But the airport authority hadn't made significant changes. They relied on pilot vigilance instead of designing idiot-proof systems. Fifth, regulatory oversight. Taiwan's aviation authority knew about these issues. They'd received safety recommendations, but implementing changes costs money. Upgrading lighting, installing ground radar, redesigning taxiways, all expensive. So it got delayed, and delayed, until 82 people paid the price. Can you believe this? Warning signs everywhere, reports filed, recommendations made, and nothing happened until a 747 full of people crashed into construction equipment. Here's what the industry learned, my friend. And I gotta say, some real changes came from this tragedy. Airport surface detection equipment became mandatory at major airports worldwide. Ground radar systems that show controllers exactly where every aircraft is, even in zero visibility. If this technology had been at Taipei in 2000, controllers would have seen Singapore 006 on the wrong runway and stopped them before takeoff. Runway lighting standards got completely overhauled. Closed runways now require lighted barricades at entrances, not just painted X symbols. If you can't physically taxi onto a closed runway without hitting a lit barrier, you can't accidentally take off from it. Enhanced crew resource management training now emphasizes situational awareness during taxi, especially in poor visibility. Pilots are trained to cross-check position using multiple sources: charts, GPS, visual landmarks, ATC instructions. Never assume. Always verify. Singapore Airlines implemented additional briefings for all crews operating into Taipei and other complex airports. They also revised their procedures to include verbal confirmation of runway assignment before takeoff roll. The Taiwan Aviation Safety Council. They faced intense scrutiny. Investigators found that previous safety recommendations had been ignored due to budget constraints. That changed. Money got allocated. Upgrades happened. Legally, there were lawsuits. Families of victims sued Singapore Airlines, Boeing, and the airport authority. Settlements ran into the hundreds of millions. Captain Chow was investigated, but ultimately not charged criminally. The real blame fell on systemic failures, not individual error. But here's the ethical question, my friend. Who's responsible when a disaster is caused by multiple small failures instead of one big mistake? Is it the crew who didn't verify their position? The airport that didn't upgrade safety systems? The regulators who delayed implementation, or all of them? What do you think? Aviation is the safest form of transportation because we learn from every tragedy. Singapore Airlines Flight 006 didn't crash because of bad luck or an act of God. It crashed because humans designed systems with gaps, and other humans didn't catch the errors in time. But every person who flies today is safer because of what we learned that night in Taipei. If you found today's episode valuable, I suggest you check out my video on the Tenerife airport disaster right here, another case where runway confusion led to catastrophe, and the lessons that changed aviation forever. This is Captain Peter Mercer. Thanks for being my co-pilot on this one. It's a tough story, but it matters. See you on the next flight.